I am not surprised when I'm constantly reminded by the many processions and strikes against government policy that do not in the slightest benefit the electorate that voted for Starmer's Labour. I guess the mistake was not realizing that voting for a Sir would be voting for a Labour Party that is more right of centre, much like the Conservatives, who are extreme right and represent corporations, big businesses, and the rich, and much less like the Labour Party that we came to understand and that represented the vulnerable and less fortunate, the labor unions, the people. The Corbyn Sultana new left of centre Labour Party promises to comply with the demands of the people for reforms that transform what is seen as exploitative government policy that alienates the electorate from the decision making process to one that is just, equitable, and continues to believe in human rights and international justice. We expect their first step will be to sort out the domestic mess created by the labor right and conservatives and break the links they have with extreme right authoritarian governments that commit and support genocide, extermination, and ethnic cleansing, and those that continue to ignore their commitments to human rights and international law. Let's pray that this time around the people get their rightful place at the table. Understanding the class system isn't complicated, as it is defined as three tiers, namely the upper, middle, and lower classes, which are measured not just by income, but also wealth, education, and occupation. The upper class represents the wealthiest segment of the global population, and then often controls a disproportionate share of the country's and the world's wealth, and has significant influence through investments and ownership of the means of production. Their status is typically inherited or accumulated through substantial entrepreneurial success. Globally, this can be equated to the highest echelons of income and wealth earners. The upper class, which is also the richest 10%, captures a staggering 52% of total global income and owns 76% of all global wealth. The middle class is characterized by a certain level of economic stability and disposable income. While definitions vary, it generally includes individuals with salaried professions, small business owners, and those with a higher education. A frequently used benchmark for the global middle class is the ability to afford certain consumer goods and a degree of financial security. The middle class, assessed at 40% of the global population, earns 39% of global income and holds just 22% of global wealth. The lower class, which is the largest and most economically vulnerable group, includes those in low paying jobs with limited access to education and healthcare and often living in poverty. A significant portion of this class lives on a subsistence level with their daily income barely covering basic needs. The poorest 50%, lower class, which is the largest portion of the world's population, subsists on just 8.5% of the total global income and are left with a mere 2% of global wealth. While the terms upper class, middle class, and lower class are not officially defined by statistical bodies, a common approach to understanding wealth distribution is to use wealth percentiles as a proxy. Based on the latest available data, a possible breakdown of wealth ownership by those social strata would be: the upper class, top 10% of households, owns approximately 43% of the UK's total wealth. To be in this bracket, a household's total wealth, including property, pensions, and financial investments, would need to be in the region of £1.2 million or more. At the very pinnacle, The top 1% of households hold a significant portion of this wealth, with individual household fortunes reaching into the multi millions. The middle class, the next 40% of households, from the 50th to the 90th percentile, holds an estimated 48% of the nation's wealth. This segment represents a wide range of financial standing, from those with moderate savings and property equity to more affluent professions with substantial pension pots. The lower class, the bottom 50% of households, possesses a mere 9% of the total wealth. For these households, wealth is often limited, and in many cases, debts can outweigh assets. The least wealthy 10% of households have £16,500 or less in total wealth. Let's pray that this time around, universal income, universal health care, and universal housing are taken care of.